Good morning, boys and girls. My name is Miss Neely, and today we're going to be reading a really fun book about friendship. We've all had a time in our lives where we met someone new that was different than us, and that's okay. When we meet someone new, we talk with them and are friendly towards them. Miss Neely meets new people everywhere she goes and is always friendly towards them. When she first met her best friend in school, the two of them started to talk and have similar interests. To this day, Miss Neely still has her best friend in her life, and she can't be any more thankful. Close your eyes and think of a time when you met somebody new. Was it at school? Was it at a park? Maybe it was on a family vacation. But most importantly, ask yourself the following question. Were you friendly towards them? Turn and talk with your elbow partner and share when you met somebody new. Okay, eyes up, hands up. Would anybody like to share when they met somebody new? Yes, go ahead. You met someone at school? And were you friendly towards them? Oh, I love to hear that. Good job. Anybody else want to share? Yes, go ahead. You met them on vacation? Are you still in contact with them? No? But you were friendly, right? I love that. So the story that we're going to be reading today is about a mouse who also meets somebody new. Now remember how you felt when you met someone new and how you acted towards them. As you visualize this, it's going to help you understand the characters and the story itself. Now this book that we're going to be reading is a piece of fiction, and fiction means that a story is made up. Now as a good reader, I know that when I read a piece of fiction, I need to be thinking about the characters, where the story takes place, and what the story is about. I also need to pay attention to the events of different things that happen in the story because it's possible that the story might change as we continue to read. But as we know what happens in the story in a specific order, it's going to help us understand the important details and the story altogether. Now, boys and girls, before we begin to read our story for the first time, there are two vocabulary words that I want you guys to look for as we read the text. The first word that we're going to be seeing is the word envy. And envy means to want something that somebody else has. We can all think of a time where we wanted something that someone else possessed. Perhaps it was a toy, or perhaps it was a certain game. In this story, we will learn that the main character envies how his friend is treated. The other word that we will see in this story is called in vain. And when it means to be in vain, it means without success. We all might have had a time where we were trying to find something that was ours, but it's been misplaced and we struggled to find it, no matter how hard we tried. And in this story, we're going to see the struggle that the main character goes through to find something that he needs. Now, boys and girls, we're going to be beginning to read the story called Alexander and the Wind-Up Mouse by Leo Liani. Now, before I even begin to read the story, I always look by reading the title and looking at the illustrations. Then, as I look at both, I try to put the pieces together as to what the story might be about. I'm wondering why the mouse has wheels instead of feet. And I'm wondering what adventure that these two mice might go on. As good readers, what are some of the things that you are wondering about? Turn and talk with your partner and tell me what you're wondering before we dive into this story. Go. Eyes up, hands up. I'm going to collect two from the group, okay? So, tell me, what do you think? What's something that you wonder about? You wonder why one of the mouse is in the jar? Yeah, I wondered that too, honestly. I wonder why he's sitting in the jar. Maybe he lives in there. Anybody else? Yes, you go. You wonder why this mouse has a key? Yeah, I wonder that too. I don't know. Do you think he's a real mouse? You don't think so? Well, I think it's best if maybe we dive into our story now and discover what Alexander will be doing with the wind-up mouse. Oh, no. Help! Help! A mouse! There was a scream, then a crash. Cups, saucers, and spoons were flying in all directions. Alexander ran for his hole as fast as his little legs would carry him. Now do me a favor. I want you to close your eyes and imagine that you're inside of this house and you see a mouse scurrying across the floor. How would you react? Picture the noise of everything falling, the cups and the saucers and the spoons crashing onto the floor, trying to get to Alexander. How do you think these people are feeling? Do you think they're scared? Do you think that the mouse is going to hurt them? Now let's spin it. Picture that you are Alexander. How do you think he's feeling? All right, open your eyes. Let's continue. All Alexander wanted was a few crumbs, and yet every time he saw him, they would scream for help or chase him with a broom. That's not nice. One day, when there was no one in the house, Alexander heard a squeak in Annie's room. He sneaked in, and what did he see? Another mouse. But not an ordinary mouse like himself. Instead of his legs, it had two little wheels, and on its back was a key. "Who are you?" said Alexander. "I am Willie the wind-up mouse, Annie's favorite toy. They wind me up to make me run around in circles. They cuddle me at night. I sleep on a soft white pillow between the doll and the woolly teddy bear. Everybody loves me." "They don't care that much for me," said Alexander sadly, but he was happy to have found a friend. "Let's go to the kitchen and look for crumbs," he said. "Oh, I can't," said Willie. "I can only move when they wind me. But I don't mind. Everybody loves me." Alexander, too, came to love Willie. He went to visit him whenever he could. He told him of his adventures with brooms, flying saucers, and mousetraps. Willie talked about the penguin, the woolly teddy bear, and mostly about Annie. The two friends spent many happy hours together. Now, as a good reader, I want to make sure that I understand all parts of the story that we read so far, such as who the main characters are, and where this story has been taking place. But if I'm not positive about stuff, I go back and I read through. So let's go back real quick and see what has happened so far. Alexander wanted to find some food in the kitchen, and the humans found him and were trying to harm him. And then Alexander found Willie and learned that he wasn't a real mouse. He was a toy, and that everybody liked him, but they didn't like Alexander. Willie went on to talk about all the privileges that he got, while Alexander only mentioned about the sorrowful things that he has witnessed. But no matter what their differences were, Alexander grew to like Willie, and they soon became really close friends. But when he was alone in the dark of his hideout, Alexander thought of Willie with envy. Ah, he sighed. Why can't I be a wind-up mouse like Willie and be cuddled and loved? Now let's stop right there. Hold on, boys and girls. I see one of our vocabulary words that we talked about before we started this story. Does anybody remember what that word was? Envy. Correct. So, does anybody remember what envy means? Raise your hand. Yes, you. Yes, it's to want something that somebody else has. And I think it's interesting to know that Alexander really wants to have Willie's life because Willie is loved by everyone. How do you think Alexander feels? Yeah, I think he does feel sad. Let's continue the story and see what happens. One day, Willie told a strange story. I've heard, he whispered mysteriously, that in the garden, at the end of the pebble path close to the blackberry bush, there lives a magic lizard who can change one animal into another. Do you mean, said Alexander, that he could change me into a wind-up mouse like you? Oh my goodness. A lot has happened so far in this story. Let's go back and recall some of the vital information we have learned about our characters. So let's see. Alexander and Willie met for the first time and they were friendly towards each other. Willie was talking about his good experiences while Alexander was talking about his bad experiences. But then we grew to learn that Alexander is envious of Willie because Willie gets all the good privileges and Alexander does not get treated fairly. But now we just learned something really important, that Willie knows about a lizard that can change any animal into something different. And since we know that Alexander wants to be like Willie, Willie wants to know if he can be turned into a wind-up mouse. Now, as a good reader, when I turn the page, I know that the story is about to change. But I must make sure that I'm prepared for this change. I think I am. How about you? You guys are ready too? Let's see what happens as we continue to read. That very afternoon, Alexander went into the garden and ran to the end of the path. Lizard! Lizard! He whispered, and suddenly there stood before him, full of colors and flowers and butterflies, a large lizard. Is it true that you can change me into a wind-up mouse? Said Alexander in a quivering voice. When the moon is round, said the lizard, bring me a purple pebble. For days and days, Alexander searched in the garden for a purple pebble. In vain. He found yellow pebbles and blue pebbles and green pebbles, but not one tiny purple pebble. Now, after reading this text, I think I found one of our other vocabulary words. Does anybody remember what it's called? Yes. Yes. Now, do you remember what in vain means? Yes, without success. Do you think he is successful looking for this purple pebble? No, unfortunately. Do you think he will find it? It definitely is possible. Let's continue the story, boys and girls. At last, tired and hungry, he returned to the house. In the corner of the pantry, he saw a box full of old toys. And there, between blocks and broken dolls, was Willie. What happened? Said Alexander, surprised. Willie told him a sad story. It had been Annie's birthday. There had been a party and everyone had brought a gift. The next day, Willie sighed, many of the old toys were dumped in this box. It will all be thrown away. Alexander was almost in tears. Poor Willie, he thought. But then, suddenly, something caught his eye. Could it really be? Yes, it was. It was the little purple pebble. The story seems to be increasing in suspense, don't you think? Now, after reading the text, Alexander seems to be really worried for his friend. Yet something catches his eye, though. Let's put on our observational eyes real quick and tell me if you can find the purple pebble in the picture. What do you think? Can you see it? Where is it? Someone tell me. Where is it? Go ahead. Leaning up against the box? Right here? That's right. He found the purple pebble. Now, since Alexander found the purple pebble, what does he have to do now? Yes, he has to give it to the lizard. Let's go back real quick and let's see what the lizard said. He said, well, first, Alexander asked if it was true that he can make him into a wind-up mouse. And the lizard replied, when the moon is round, bring me a purple pebble. I think this purple pebble is going to have a very important role in this story. Let's see what happens as we continue. All excited, he ran to the garden, the precious pebble tight in his arms. There was a full moon. Out of breath, Alexander stopped near the blackberry bush. Lizard, lizard, in the bush, he called quickly. The leaves rustled, and there stood the lizard. The moon is round, the pebble is found, said the lizard. Who or what do you wish to be? I want to be... Alexander stopped. Then suddenly he said, Lizard, lizard, could you change Willie into a mouse like me? The lizard blinked. There was a blinding light, and then all was quiet. The purple pebble was gone. Alexander ran back to the house as fast as he could. The box was there, but alas, it was empty. Too late, he thought, and with a heavy heart, he went to his hole in the baseboard. Right now, as good readers, we should be able to feel the emotion that Alexander has when he can't find his friend. Now turn and talk with your elbow partner and make a prediction as to what you believe will happen as we finish this story. Do you think that Alexander will find Willie? Do you think that the magic spell worked? Or do you think he was too late? Turn and talk starting now. Eyes up, hands up. Who would like to share their prediction? Go ahead, what do you think? You think the spell worked? Why do you think that? How come we can't find Willie? You think Willie jumped out of the box before the toys were thrown away? It's highly possible. Does anybody else have a different prediction? Go ahead, yes. You don't think the spell worked? How come? The box is empty, yes. Yeah, I bet he does feel sad about the whole thing. I think it's time we discover if the magic pebble did work. Are you guys ready? I loved all of your predictions, by the way. Let's discover what happens as we turn the page. Something squeaked. Cautiously, Alexander moved closer to the hole. There was a mouse inside. Who are you? Said Alexander, a little frightened. My name is Willie, said the mouse. Oh my goodness! Willie! Cried Alexander. The lizard! The lizard did it! He hugged Willie, and then they ran into the garden path, and they danced until dawn. So, as good readers, it's important to remember that if your prediction was incorrect, that we can now change it to what the author said. The pebble worked, right? And is Willie a real mouse now? Exactly, yes. Now, boys and girls, I really hope you enjoyed this story, but now we're going to be filling out a graphic organizer. So everyone, please return to your seats quietly with a bubble in your mouth, and I'm going to come around and pass out the graphic organizer. Nothing should be on your desk except the pencil and the graphic organizer that I will pass out to you. Now that everybody has a graphic organizer on their desk, please have your eyes on me, hands up on your head. Perfect. Let's go through our graphic organizer. We're going to connect to the story. So the directions say, in Alexander and the Wind-Up Mouse, Alexander is a good friend to Willie because he spends time with him and the two talk all the time. What do you believe makes you a good friend? Now, we all know in this classroom that we're all friendly towards each other, correct? And we have our own friends. So, what do you believe are some of the traits that you possess as a good friend? What you're going to do is you're going to write me 1 to 2 sentences that explains why you're a good friend. And in this box here, you can draw yourself and one of your friends, or if you have more than one friend, you can draw your whole group of friends. But I want you to make sure that you list out what makes you a good friend towards your friends. I'm going to be coming around and helping you guys out if you're stuck. Now, during this time where the students are filling out their graphic organizers, I will be going around and differentiating the directions and instruction for students who are struggling with this. So for higher level learners, I would explain the directions in a higher level of vocabulary, while also going into deeper detail of what I'm expecting. And as they are writing out their response, I would encourage them to write more. And for lower level students, what I would do is I would encourage them to put more into their picture, but still respond via text to write it out as well. If they're not strong to write out sentences yet, I would encourage the use of bullet points. I would still have every child, though, complete 2 or 3 characteristics that make them a good friend. This concludes my lesson on Alexander and the Wind-Up Mouse. I really hope you enjoyed, and thank you so much for watching.